Have you ever noticed how debt rarely feels like a mistake while you're taking it on? It usually feels reasonable. Sometimes it even feels responsible. A better phone because your old one is too slow for work. A nicer car because you deserve reliability. A slightly bigger apartment because this is just adult life. The uncomfortable truth is this. Most people, Dante, fall into debt because they're reckless. They fall into debt because their justifications sound logical in the moment. And that's what actually creates the problem. Let's start with a very normal situation in the United States or Europe. You're in your mid-20s or early 30. SAU, earn around $60,000 a year in the U.S. or the equivalent in Europe. After taxes, Social Security, and health insurance, your take-home pay is roughly $3,700 a month. Nothing extravagant. Nothing irresponsible. Now the expenses begin. Rent or mortgage takes $1,300 to $1,600. Utilities, internet, phone at another $200. Groceries and basic living costs run about $400. You're already down to around $1,500. Then comes transportation. A car payment or lease at $400. Insurance, fuel, maintenance, another $200. Now you're at $900. Student loan payments. Quietly take $250. Credit card minimums take $150. You're left with about $500. This is where lifestyle pressure enters quietly, not aggressively. Streaming subscriptions. Eating out twice a week. Occasional online shopping. A short weekend trip because everyone needs a break. Nothing here feels irresponsible. Everything feels justified. And yet, at the end of the month, there's nothing left. So what do most people conclude? I don't earn enough. Inflation is the problem. Life is just expensive now. Those statements aren't completely wrong. But they miss the deeper issue. The real problem isn't that itself. That is a tool, a neutral one. The real problem is how easily we justify using it for comfort instead of leverage. Here's the mistake most people don't see. They treat monthly payments as affordability, not total costs, not long-term impact, just the monthly number. A $35,000 car doesn't feel like $35,000. It feels like $480 a month. A $1,200 phone doesn't feel like $1,200. It feels like $45 a month. A $6,000 vacation doesn't feel like $6,000. It feels like we'll figure it out later. The system encourages this thinking. Banks don't advertise total interest paid. Dealerships don't ask about your future goals. Credit card apps show minimum payments in bold, not payoff, and so debt becomes invisible. Let's slow this down with simple math. Imagine a $35,000 car loan at 7% for 6 years. You don't pay $35,000. You pay around $42,000. $7,000 in interest for transportation that loses value every year. Now, imagine you upgrade cars every 6 or 7 years. Over a 30-year working life, that habit alone can quietly cost over $50,000 in extra interest. Not counting depreciation. Not counting insurance. Differences whose interests. And most people never feel it because it's spread across time. That's how debt hides. But here's where psychology matters more than math. Humans are very good at defending decisions that reduce discomfort now. Debt does exactly that. It removes friction. It lets you say yes today and worry later. And the brain loves that. There's also social pressure. In the US and Europe, debt is normalized as adulthood. Car loans mean you're stable. Mortgages mean you've made it. Credit cards mean you're building credit. No one talks about mental load. No one talks about how every monthly payment quietly reduces freedom. The anxiety doesn't come from debt itself. It comes from knowing you can stop working, even temporarily, without consequences. If this pattern is ignored, the long-term impact is subtle but serious. You don't feel broke. You feel stuck. Raises disappear into higher payments. Bonuses vanish into old decisions. Job dissatisfaction grows because quitting feels impossible. Saving feels optional. Investing feels later. Time becomes expensive. And eventually, people say things like, I earn decent money, but I don't know where it goes. The money didn't disappear. It was pre-spent years ago with very reasonable explanations. Now here's the shift that financially intelligent people make. Not smarter people, not richer people, just people who think differently about debt. They don't ask, can I afford the payment? They ask, what does this payment steal from my future? They understand that every fixed expense is a claim on tomorrow's income. They don't see debt as evil. They see it as heavy. So they're selective. They use debt when it creates flexibility later. Not comfort now. Education that increases earning power. Housing that stabilizes costs long term. Sometimes a business risk they've actually calculated. But they're cautious with lifestyle debt. Because lifestyle changes, but payments don't. They also delay justification. When something feels emotionally urgent, they wait. Not forever. Just long enough for logic to catch up. If it still makes sense, after the excitement fades, they proceed. If not, they move on without guilt. And that's the key difference. No shame. No moral judgment. Just clarity. So if there's one idea to take from this, it's simple. Debt isn't dangerous because it exists. It's dangerous because it feels reasonable while quietly narrowing your options. Awareness alone changes behavior. Not guilt, not pressure, not extreme frugality. Just understanding what your future self is agreeing to. If this way of thinking helps you see money a little more clearly, you can support the channel by subscribing or liking the video. Ta, te, se, all. Before we end it, S-word slowing down for a moment because this topic isn't really about numbers. It's about clarity. Most people don't want luxury. They want stability. They want breathing room. They want to feel one unexpected expense won't knock everything over. And yet, many intelligent, hardworking people feel constantly tight. Not because they failed, but because their financial life was built on small, justified decisions that stacked quietly over time. That's important to understand. This isn't a moral failure. It's not laziness. It's not lack of discipline. It's how modern systems are designed. Everything today is optimized to feel manageable this month. Monthly payments. Buy dash now. Dash pay. Dash later. Minimum dues. Deferred interest. None of it asks how your life feels 5 years from now. So when people say, I'll deal with it later, they usually do, but later arrives with less flexibility, not more. The goal isn't to fear debt. Fear leads to extremes, and extremes rarely last. The goal is to see debt clearly, without emotion. To recognize that every payment is a quiet promise to your future self. And that future self might want options more than comfort. More time. More margin. More ability to say no. Financial intelligence isn't about having less. It's about committing less of tomorrow before tomorrow arrives. And when you start thinking that way, something subtle happens. You don't feel deprived. You don't feel behind. You don't feel pressured to keep up. You feel calm. Because calm comes from knowing your income works for you, not ahead of you. If this video made you pause, reflect, or see your own decisions with a bit more clarity, then it did its job. There's no checklist to follow. No dramatic change is required. Just awareness. And awareness, over time, quietly changes outcomes. If you want more calm, reality-based conversations like this around money, you can subscribe to the channel or like the video. Nothing more than that. Thanks for watching.